All right, guys, welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. And today we're going to be looking at the 2022 college football transfer portal recap. Of course, players have until May 1st to pick wherever they're going to be playing their football at next. That really goes for any sport, but mainly here in football, May 1st is the deadline. So still a lot to hash out, but for the most part, the top players available, they are all committed. And these top classes are kind of set in stone. So we're going to go ahead and give it a recap today. Looking at number one, Caleb Williams finally made the decision to go from Oklahoma to USC and follow Lincoln Riley. He's expected to be a perennial Heisman candidate over there in Los Angeles and make a ton of money in the process. Quinn Ewers going from Ohio State to Texas. He made a lot of money last year. He allegedly made seven figures at Ohio State. He comes back at Texas to his home school. Casey Thompson, of course, he transferred to Nebraska. So Ewers, he's going to take over. Hudson Card is still there, but we already know who the starter will be, the former number one ranked recruit. Very excited to see what he can do in his first year with Steve Sarkisian in this offense. Jackson Dart. USC loses one. They gained Caleb Williams, but they lost Jackson Dart. We kind of expected that, but it officially happened. Dart chose between Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Very excited to see what he will do in this Lane Kiffin offense. He's got a big arm, a lot of good size, very good mechanics. Former Gatorade Player of the Year. Can't wait to see what Dart does. I think both of the quarterbacks associated with USC, Dart and Williams, I think those guys are going to have really big years at their new schools. Eli Ricks, he's a sticky man coverage corner. He only played in 6 games a season ago, but he's now going to transfer from LSU to Alabama. Remember last year coming into the season, LSU had the projected top corner duo in him and Derek Stingley. Neither of them really panned out because of injuries and whatnot. But this is a great pickup. Former number 2 corner recruit, former 5-star out of California. He's going to go play for Nick Saban in Alabama. And corner is a bit of an issue for him last year. It kind of shocked me. I thought they had a lot of talent and depth. But as the season waged on, that proved to not be so true, especially in the national title game. They really got beat up by injuries. That's a big pickup for them. Kingsley Suamatea, going from Oregon to BYU. He played high school ball in Orem, Utah. That's, about less than 10 miles from Provo. He's going to go play for Kalani Sitake at BYU. He was a former high-end 4-star recruit, so that's a good pickup for them. I'm not really sure why he didn't just commit to BYU off the rip of things, because after 1 year at Oregon, not much really happened. He decided to bolt. So good pickup there for BYU, and a good player gets to go back home and play in front of his hometown. Jameer Gibbs, Zach Evans, 2 really good running backs here. Gibbs is an all-around playmaker. I like this pickup for Alabama. He's probably going to be in the Heisman running. He can do a lot as a pass catcher or runner. He was already practicing with Alabama as soon as he committed, and he was allegedly schooling people in practice. So Gibbs, he's going to be a good player to watch. Zach Evans, only played in 6 games, a few touches versus an FCS school. So technically, he only played in 5 games. He had 100-plus yards in 4 straight, though, before he got hurt. The final game he played was October 23rd. He had nearly 100 total yards in that game, too. Averaged over 7 yards per carry. Remember, he was a 5-star one point, couldn't really make up his mind. I can't remember what the whole situation was, but he settled on TCU. Explosive player, over 7 yards per carry. He's going to go to Ole Miss, a school that averaged, they were 11th nationally in yards per game running last year. They lose Snoop Connor and Jerry and Ely. Parrish as well. That's a pretty depleted backfield. They just lost all 3 now that I think about it. I'm pretty sure. Evans, though, he's going to fill that void tremendously. Great pickup. Ole Miss had a very good class. We'll get to the top classes later. As you can see right here, those are the rankings. We'll kind of go in depth here in a minute, though. Mario Williams, more of a slot corner guy. That's mainly where he spent most of his time. One of the receivers, Theo Weiss, he got injured, so he's kind of pressed into action a little bit more. He didn't do too much. He didn't have too much of an impact, but he was a high-end recruit in that class they just had in 21 for Lincoln Riley and the Sooners. He's a guy he's a smaller guy. He can do a lot out of the slot. Of course, going to USC, no shock there. Jermaine Burton, he's going to add he got a lot of criticism for going from Georgia to Bama. He's going to add a lot of speed vertically, kind of like Jamison Williams did last year. He won't have nearly as big of a season. He's not going to, I don't think he'll, create a first-round draft status or anything, but he's certainly going to have a big impact for them. He's going to be one of their top 2 or 3 pass catchers next season because they have a lot of guys that are going to step up. So his veteran presence will help. Drew Sanders, a former 5-star, didn't play much in the first 2 years for Alabama. Barry Odom, expects big things from his linebackers. Sanders should be able to do that with the talent he has. They had 3 linebackers last year post 100-plus tackles. That's pretty insane stuff. Sanders, he's going to be asked, to do the same. Jared Verse, don't really know much about him from Albany, going to Florida State, but a lot of people like what he brings to the table here. He's a big-time pass rusher, so we'll see what happens. Mekhi Wingo, he was a 3-star coming out of high school, went to Missouri for a year, had about 30 tackles. Didn't do too much, but he's a bigger body. People are drawing comparisons to Jarrell Casey. I don't really know much about Wingo, but he was highly coveted, just like Jared Verse was. Brandon Joseph, first-team All-American in 2020, 6 interceptions, and he had 3 this past year. Covers the field very well with his athleticism. Couldn't have figured of a better guy to replace Kyle Hamilton than Brandon Joseph. Marcus Freeman, that's a great pickup for them. He's going to be a very good ball player. Cameron Ward, he replaces Jaden Delora. He's transferring to Arizona. Incarnate Word to Washington State follows his old offensive coordinator and Eric Morris in that air raid offense, 4,600 yards, 47 touchdowns last year. If you remember Bailey Zappi, he followed his offensive coordinator to Western Kentucky along with some of his weapons, and he just had one of the greatest seasons ever by a quarterback. And he came from an FCS school as well, so Cameron Ward, that familiarity with each other, that's really important, that he might have a big season. Of course, he's playing in the Pac-12, not the CUSA, but Ward, he could come in and have a big-time season for Washington State. Jahleel Billingsley, he was in Nick Saban's doghouse this past year. He didn't really play a lot. Very disappointing season. He reunites with Steve Sarkisian. He's a guy who's got plenty of athleticism. I like what he brings to the table in terms of size as well. He could probably play receiver if you wanted him to. Billingsley, hopefully he can get back on track with his career. Dylan Gabriel reunites with Jeff Webby at Oklahoma. This is a great pickup for them. It's probably a big reason why Jackson Dart decided to go to Ole Miss instead, because Gabriel and him, it would have been a pretty big battle. I don't know who would have came out on top, but Gabriel, the veteran, I think he's going to do great at Oklahoma. Originally, he was committed to UCLA. Webby went to Norman, and he followed suit. The Sooners gained a guy. And Gabriel, they lost Jaden Hazelwood. Has not done much with his career, but he was a former 5-star recruit. Pretty good blocker. He's going to be going to play for the Razorbacks in Fayetteville. Jacob Cowing, I just talked about Jaden Delora. Jed Fish also went out and added a big-time playmaker, too, at receiver. Nearly 1,400 yards for Jacob Cowing, 20 yards per catch. He was a big-time playmaker for UTEP last year. Fitch made some very big improvements on his offense with these two, him and Delora. Should be a really good pairing next year to get this offense on track a little bit. Osiris-Torrance, this is probably one of the best pickups in the portal. He was expected to probably be a top 100 draft pick, and he decides to follow his former head coach and build his draft stock potentially into a first-rounder. Multi-time All-American in the Sun Belt. Osiris-Torrance, he's one of many to follow Napier to Gainesville. Travis Dye at Oregon to USC. This is a big-time pickup for them, He averaged 6+ yards per carry. He had 20 total touchdowns. It is 16 all around. He did a lot as a pass catcher for them. Really stepped up when CJ Verdell went down. Dollar left as well. Verdell went down after, that big game against Ohio State, got injured like a week or two later. Dye took over with grace. Great pickup for USC. Miles Frazier, LSU did some work. That's one of the notable names, highly coveted offensive tackle from FIU. LSU, they added a lot of beef in this portal and some, depth at corner. I like what they did. Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma to South Carolina. He's going to reunite. Him and Austin Stogner, they transferred down to Columbia to, play for Shane Beamer, the former Oklahoma assistant. Say what you want about Spencer Rattler. Obviously, he didn't live up to expectations last year, but he's going to be dangerous in the SEC. He's going to be playing in a bit of a smaller market. Won't have as much pressure, I don't think, this year. I think he's going to look to prove some people wrong. Rattler's going to have a big year, I think, for South Carolina. It's going to be a scary team in the East. Looking at the West, though, Max Johnson, he's a bit of a gamer. Pretty average quarterback. Texas A&M, it's a 1-year upgrade. I think they got a 5-star in Connor Wigman coming in. So, nice 1-year bridge quarterback. I don't think he's really going to be... He can be a game changer, especially with his legs. He makes some good throws, but he's not, great by any stretch of the imagination. I think he'll be a pretty good player for the Aggies, though, for a year or two. Keaton Slovis, no surprise that he went to Pitt. It made sense from the start. Kenny Pickett, Heisman finalist. He had a big-time year. His girlfriend goes to Pittsburgh. It was a perfect fit from the start, so he ended up there as expected. He has Jordan Addison, one of the nation's top receivers coming back next year. So he should have a big year for Pitt. Jackson Sermon, Washington, the Cow, he had 92 tackles last year. Led the Huskies He's the brother of, what's his name, Jacob Sermon. He was the quarterback. He was like on his third team already, but him and his brother were pretty highly sought after recruits. He's going to go play for the California Golden Bears and Justin Wilcox. Right here, Wadeys, another offensive lineman, following Napier to the Gators. Pretty good pickup for them. Mohammed Diabati. This is a great pickup for Utah. You usually don't see a guy go from down south all the way out to Salt Lake City. He was second on the team with almost 90 tackles last year. So this is a big-time pickup for Utah. A lot of people are already expecting things out of next year. They're going to need someone to replace Devin Lloyd, his experiments and leadership. I think Diabati, that's going to be a really good pickup. Probably, never mind. I was going to say Pac-12 newcomer of the year, maybe on defense. But on offense, that's going to be Caleb Williams. Right here, Michael Trigg. He's going to follow Jackson Dart from USC to Ole Miss. Pretty athletic tight end. It's unfortunate it did not pan out there, but he's going to follow his old counterpart in Dart. And they should make magic at Ole Miss. J.J. Pegasus as well going to Ole Miss. So they added some big-time talent. Isaiah Neor for Texas. He was originally going to Tennessee. Longhorns scooped in last minute. He averaged 20 yards per catch last year, 12 touchdowns for a primarily run-first team. Very impressive stuff from Neor. I think he's going to be a good player for Texas. They're adding some talent on offense. Tyon Evans, a bigger back, 220 pounds. He runs very impressively. Some pretty good breakaway speed. He really showed it in that game against Missouri, where they could not slow down him one bit. Of course, they couldn't slow down anyone all year, but Evans really showcased his talents in that one. Really all year. He only played in a handful of games. Missed the back end of the season due to injuries. We just talked about Stogner going to Shane Beamer and SC. Sean Shivers, a physical runner. He's going to Indiana. The Hoosiers have really made some big waves. Tom Allen's did a good job in the transfer portal the last couple of years. Some really good talent from the Power 5. He's going to go there along with Connor Blaslick. Now, he transferred. He had a pretty solid season. He didn't play the bowl game. Brady Cook did. Cook had a pretty good game, and then a few days later, Blaslick was in the portal. I just don't know what to say. It's ridiculous that you're transferring like that. Maybe there's something deeper into it, but who's shocked? A transfer portal, anytime there's a little bit of competition, we decide to run. That seems to be everybody, though, not just Blaslick. Tosh Harris, he's a good playmaker for them. Bo Melton's leaving. Rutgers picks up a good player. He's originally going to Kentucky. I can't remember. I think it was a grades issue or something. He's going to Rutgers now, it appears. He was a big-time playmaker for Syracuse. Downfield target. That's a very good add for them on offense as they continue to try to get things right on that side of the ball. Jacob Copeland, veteran pass catcher, going to Maryland. Mike Loxley adds another good weapon. He's going to be there with Raheem Jarrett and Demas. So Dante Demas, that is. They got a really good receiving core for next season. Tagovailoa should have a pretty good year. He's now, his third year. Big-time veteran. So that should be a nice, scary passing attack next year. Looking at 49-50, Jackson Player going to Baylor. He's a Waco native, had a big-time season for Tulsa, 15 tackles for loss. He really shined as a run stuffer, made some waves as a pass rusher as well. Him and Siaka Ika next year, they are going to be a scary duo on the interior for Baylor in the Big 12. Tanner Mcallister goes from Oklahoma State to Ohio State, a veteran safety who's going to reunite with Jim Knowles. Big ad for Ohio State in Knowles and, one of his DBs because they really struggled on defense. I really think they're going to get back to dominating in that area of the football game, or, of the football team, because their defense is not that good. I think they're going to get back to it now. Brendan Rice, Kobe Hudson, some playmaking wide receivers. Brendan Rice was not used properly at Colorado. Of course, they didn't have a passing game whatsoever last year. Brendan Lewis didn't play very good whatsoever, but this is a guy who can get involved as a runner, as a as a kick returner, a pass catcher downfield. I think USC is going to utilize him properly. Great addition for Lincoln Riley. Ole Miss, they had made some big adds on the defensive side of the ball. Jared Ivey's one of them. But I really want to focus on Montreal Johnson here, as running back from Louisiana. Another guy that follows Billy Napier. He was the freshman of the year in the Sun Belt. Had over 800 yards, 12 touchdowns. That was a big-time add for Napier to get him to follow suit and come to Gainesville. Troy Brown was another one of those guys I was talking about on Ole Miss. This is a veteran. He's been at Central Michigan a couple of years. And, numerous amounts of tackles, 216 of them over his career, 31 tackles for loss. He's not that big, a little undersized, but he's a playmaker. This is a really good class for Ole Miss. Here's a few more guys. Nesta, Jade Silvera going to Arizona State. I think Jermaine Loyal is coming back. I'm pretty sure. So they're going to have some talent on the defensive line to work with. Here's some other names before we go look at these top classes. I'm really wanting to focus on this USC class to kick things off, though, with the team portion. Obviously, they didn't recruit very well on that front. Obviously, some players right here, they swooped in last minute with Riley coming in. He really convinced some high-end players. They only had like 8 commitments total. But they lead the transfer portal because they've actually dominated. Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, Dye, of course. But Austin Jones used a starting running back at Stanford, a bigger guy, some respectable speed. Romello Height from Auburn. Shane Lee from Alabama. They added some talent on defense. I think one of the best players they added was Mekhi Blackman, though. He's a versatile defensive back. He had a big 2020 season, not so much this past year, but Colorado as a whole really disappointed. Blackman, though, that's a really good pickup for the Trojans. Overall, it's a really good class. 13 commits so far, 12 Bynum. Thinner pass catcher. He's got some good vertical, though, for him, for being a smaller pass catcher. Bobby Haskins, Virginia offensive lineman. Don't know much about him, but very good class for USC. I don't know if they're probably not done, but for the most part, they've really made some waves in the transfer portal. Look at Ole Miss. I think this class is honestly just as impressive as USC. Just what they've been able to accomplish in terms of skill and filling positions. They needed a running back. They went out and got a great one. They needed a quarterback. They got it. Their offense is going to be fine. They went and added some guys on defense. Of course, DJ Durkin just left. But they added Troy Brown, Asheem Young, and then, that's a veteran. Asheem Young from Iowa State, that is a veteran. He's played many years for Matt Campbell in that, 5-man defense that they run. 5-man secondary group, that is. He's been a staple for them over the last couple of years. Mason Brooks, though, him and Young, but they both have in common multi-year all-conference selections. These guys are highly impressive. You can even throw Troy Brown in that conversation. They've picked up some really good veterans. They have played a lot of football. These guys are going to be impact starters, and that's why I feel like this class is probably maybe better than USC's. Of course, they got Caleb Williams, but these guys are going to all be pretty much impact starters. And you can't really say the same about some of the guys the USC landed, some good depth fillers, but Ole Miss, these guys are landing surefire starters. Malik Heath, a veteran wide receiver. That's a good pickup for them, too. Mohammed Sanago, that's a tough loss at linebacker. But overall, this has been a really good class for Jordan Watkins, too. I didn't even know they landed him from Louisville. That's a good pickup. This is a really good class from Ole Miss. I think they probably have the number one class in terms of transfer portal because they filled a lot of positional needs with a lot of veterans that are going to play in 2022. LSU, of course, they lost Eli Ricks, Mekhi Wingo. We just talked about him. They've added some help in the back end, though. Greg Brooks, Jarrett Bernard-Converse from Oklahoma State. So, not the biggest of guys, but some talented players that have played a lot of football. I keep harping on veterans because that's important in the transfer portal. A lot of teams are going to land some of these backups and whatnot from other schools. They haven't played so much, but these guys have played meaningful football for a lot of these classes. That's what really stands out outside of USC. Because those guys, not all of them have played meaningful football compared to some of the guys that LSU and Ole Miss got. Noah Kane from Penn State, former 4-star recruit. Penn State didn't really have much of an O-line last year, but he was their leading running back, and he did make a lot of good plays on the edge for them. That's the only way you could make a play. If you ran straight into the pile, that's all that was going to happen. You weren't going to move it. And, of course, they landed 2 in-state guys from the Raging Cajuns. Kyron Lacey, he's caught, almost 60 balls in his 2 years at ULL. Mekhi Williams-Gardner really got some good snaps this past season for the Raging Cajuns. Florida State, they've made some waves as well. South Carolina, of course, they picked up 2 guys from Oklahoma, in Rattler and Stogner. Michigan State, though, I really want to talk about their class and what they've done. They made a lot of – Mel Tucker made some waves in the transfer portal last year, and I think he's doing it again this year. Jalen Berger, they added him from Wisconsin. He didn't play this year. He was kind of in that doghouse as well. I guess he didn't really have the attitude that was meant for Wisconsin football because his job got replaced. He didn't play early in the year. I guess he didn't have a very good offseason. That's why he opted to transfer. But they also added Jarek Broussard, a smaller back. He's like 5'9", 180. He's incredibly explosive, though. Plenty of acceleration. You just saw what Kenneth Walker did. I think Broussard, who won the 2020 Pac-12 Player of the Year on Offense award, that's a big-time addition for Michigan State. especially when you take into account what happened last year with Walker winning the Doak Walker Award for the nation's top back. I think adding Aaron Bruhl and Jacoby Windham, two veteran linebackers. Bruhl, he was a starter at Mississippi State, was one of their leading tacklers. Jacoby Windham, 120 tackles, 11 tackles for loss. He's a 230-pound guy at linebacker for UNLV. UNLV's not very good, but they do occasionally have some pretty good football players. Windham, I'm very interested to see how he performs this year. But, they also added a veteran in Amir Speed from Georgia. Their secondary obviously needs a bit of a makeover. Last year they were dead last by a pretty wide margin in pass defense. That won't last long under Mel Tucker, so adding some veteran help certainly is important for them. That's going to wrap everything up for today's episode, guys. Comment, like, subscribe. See you next time.